Tom, and welcome to my weekly video blog. Well, this week we take a look at the IRS Form 2106, which is Employee Business Expenses. More specific, these are unreimbursed business expenses that will have a qualification on your buyer or borrower. As we know, taxes are not due until April 15th, but we're deep into March now, so we are requiring W-2s, and if they had filed their tax return, we do have to get a copy of it. And that's where the old 2106 form may appear if they have filed some expenses. Basically, there's 5 categories on there, and I want to just touch on each one just so you have an idea. And here's the tip: if you are working with somebody who happens to be in outside sales, for sure they're filling out this form on their tax return, and it definitely will have an impact on their qualifications. But there is a category in here that applies to everyone. You don't necessarily have to be in sales, but you can take some deductions. So let's check it out. Number 1 is vehicle expenses. Simply said, expenses that you would incur with having to do business, you can write off as long as your employer doesn't reimburse you. Number 2, parking fees, tolls, transportation, including trains, bus rides, so on and so forth. So if your employer required you to go to Washington, D.C. for a meeting and you decided to take the train, you could write that off. But if you took the train to Philadelphia every single day for work, you couldn't write that off. So it has to be associated with a business trip. And of course, if you were in Washington, D.C. and you stayed in a hotel, that could be tied in as well. Number 3 is travel expenses, which I kind of jumped ahead, which kind of goes back to number 2. And number 4 is the one I want to spend a little time on. It just says basically business expenses not included on lines 1, 2, and 3. So what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. You take a school teacher. With a lot of the budget cuts, school teachers are passionate about what they do, are going out and buying their own supplies for our class and even for their classes. Well, guess what? Under this category, they can write that off as a deduction. So that's important for you to know, because what ends up happening is now when we get their tax return and we're doing a qualification, if they wrote off $3,000 for business expenses, we have to deduct that from their income, which could have an impact on their overall qualifications. And last but not least, number 5 is meals and entertainment. So basically, if they take a client out to dinner and they want to write it off, they are able to under that. But it's important for you to know, with the 2106, this could have an impact on your borrower's overall qualifications. Quick story for you. We had a client who made over $90,000 a year, had an inside sales position. So a lot of these items wouldn't be part of it because they're inside, they're not traveling. Well, lo and behold, we got a copy of their tax return, and here they have wrote off over $50,000 in unreimbursed business expenses for travel, so on and so forth. So I'm not here to tell you that they committed fraud, but I am here to tell you that they took the deductions and they filed their tax returns, which meant the stake was in the ground. So instead of qualifying based on $90,000, I had to qualify them using $40,000. So that's an extreme story, but I just want to give that as an example. So again, before you put that person in your car and you've identified they're in outside sales, or even if they're not in outside sales, because it's fresh in their mind, they probably just filed their tax return, throw a question out there. Hey, did you take any unreimbursed business expenses? And if the answer is yes, just get a general idea of that, what that number is and how that might impact their qualifications. And remember, we're going to be asking for this information, and we always ask for this, but I wanted to make sure I got it out to you guys because we're new in the year and a lot of people are filing their tax returns, so this will be fresh on their mind. As always, we hope you find this information helpful, and we'll see you guys next week.